Somewhere between September and December of this year, you'll be submitting a personal statement, which will make up a really key part of the university application process. Some admissions tutors are now saying that they're placing more emphasis on the personal statement when selecting applicants because there is a concern that possibly centre-assessed grades or predicted grades might have been inflated. Everything that I cover in this video is designed to relieve some of the pressure as you enter your last year of school. If you can follow some of the tips and advice that I give you, I guarantee it will help avoid that last minute panic. So I'm going to give you some advice on the sorts of things that you maybe want to include. What are the steps that you could be taking over the next 3 months to help you put together a personal statement that is truly authentic and a reflection of the applicant that you are? Before I dive into the detail, I want to go through some do's and don'ts that will maybe help you avoid some of the most common mistakes. The first is don't start with a blank sheet of paper just as applications open, or even worse, as they're about to close. It's important that you think about the structure. What are the things that you might want to include? Your final submission should be the end of your research and a final reflection on all the things that you've done to date, always making them relevant to the course that you are applying to. Do some thorough research into each of the courses that you are applying for. Don't assume that all these courses will be similar. Even some of the more structured courses like law will vary enormously. If you're applying to slightly different courses or courses that offer slightly different modules, start by looking at what modules do they have in common and focus your statement on all of those. Do get the balance of academic versus personal right. It should be about 85% academic and 15% personal. It will start with a really clear statement about why you've chosen that particular course. The main bulk of your personal statement should offer evidence to an admissions tutor that you've made an informed decision, that you have the skills and the ability to study this subject independently, and that you are really enthusiastic and committed to it as a subject. The conclusion should just then be a brief statement about how you might apply this knowledge and the skills that you gain beyond education. Don't look at too many online examples. It's fine to have a look at a few just to get an idea of what might look like a good personal statement or give you an idea of structure, but do remember you can't necessarily always trust the source. It's also worth bearing in mind that universities now use plagiarising software, and it's amazing how easy it is to plagiarise somebody else's ideas. But actually, most importantly, if you start stealing other people's ideas and opinions, you'll realise that actually the personal statement doesn't really flow, and most importantly, it really won't sound authentic. Try to avoid using too many cliches or making generalisations. Don't overuse adjectives and descriptive phrases. You'll find actually that they don't really add a great deal of value, and they'll really eat into that precious word count. So rather than tell them that you've always had a love of biology, a passion for economics, or always wanted to be a doctor since you were 4, show them. Demonstrate your love of your subject through all the things that you've done, whether that's inside the classroom or out. I won't say don't use quotes, but I will say be careful how you use them. Remember that the person that is reading your personal statement will be an expert in their field. What they want to know is, what's your opinion? How is that relevant to the course and to life beyond university? Where you do quote people, it's sometimes better to go with maybe a lesser known expert in their field rather than quoting Newton, Keynes, Friedrich, or even Muhammad Ali. Rather than start with a blank sheet of paper and just start writing your personal statement, I always suggest that you start with a blank sheet of paper and you draw 3 columns. Think about everything supercurricular. What are the things that you've done outside the classroom that will demonstrate a really deep and genuine interest in your chosen subject. This could be a MOOC, it could be TED Talks, podcasts, articles, maybe a summer programme that you've attended at a university. Then think about all of your extracurricular activities. What are the things that you do when you're not studying? Your extracurricular activities will give an admissions tutor an idea of the sorts of skills that you have. It will show what type of person you are and will help them think about whether you're suited to this particular course. And then have a column that is about work experience. You're going to make your work experience relevant by either linking it to the course that you've chosen, or maybe to also just demonstrate some skills that you gathered. I'm now going to help you look at each of those columns in more detail. Now draw another 3 columns. Start by thinking about what's a particular topic that you've enjoyed. It could be plant research or biofuels in geography. It could be the existence of God in RS. It could be climate change in chemistry. And think to yourself, what could I or did I go and do next? Did you listen to a podcast on atheism? Did you attend a youth summit on climate change? Have you read a particular book on global warming? And then you want to think, what did you do next? What might you go and do next? What's your opinion? How did that make you think about your particular topic? If you can go through that formula, what you'll find is that you're then not just telling them that you've enjoyed a subject or a topic, but that actually you can show them how you've done this. It's also worth reflecting on other subjects that you're studying that might not seem particularly relevant to the choice of course, but do think about what topics have I studied in economics that could be relevant to geography. But also, what skills have I developed through a language or through studying another science that could be relevant to the particular course that I've chosen? One way to do this is to start by looking at prospects.ac.uk. Go to what could I do with my degree and scroll down to the skills that you will develop. That will give you an idea of the potential. What are they looking for? What skills might that degree help you develop? And then work backwards and think, how have maybe my other subjects helped me develop some of those skills? So this is where you'll draw another 3 columns. What did you do? What skills did that maybe help you develop and how is it relevant? So you might have attended a summer programme at a university. That will show them that you've experienced university life. But you could also make it academically relevant. You might be a member of the debating society, someone who's developed skills in presentation, in listening, or in constructing an argument, but you might have also debated on a topic that's very relevant. If you're talking about golf or volleyball, the focus will be on skills. Likewise, riding for the disabled might show that you are committed, that you have a work ethic. What's most important is that you make those experiences relevant. Far better to include 1 or 2 than simply list 10. It feels slightly unkind even referring to work experience after the year that we've had. Admissions tutors know that many of you might have secured work experience opportunities last summer and this summer, and they've since been cancelled. What they're most interested in is not what was cancelled, but what did you do as an alternative. It's worth thinking beyond just work experience in the traditional sense. Broaden your mind and think, okay, what life experiences have I had? Admissions tutors particularly like voluntary work, people who have stepped outside their comfort zone, people who've given something back to their community. It might be that you want to interview 4 or 5 experts in their fields. They could be academic or professional experts. Get their opinions, learn more about the world that they work in. There have been plenty of online work placements available. You might look at studying a MOOC, but that is relevant to the world of work, such as sustainability in business. So do think about what are the things that I could be doing over the next 3 months that will demonstrate that I have an understanding of my subject in the wider world. I understand the relevance of what it is that I am learning. If you have been lucky enough to secure some work experience and you'd like to refer to it in your personal statement, we're going to go back to our 3 columns again. So what did you actually do? Where did you do this work experience? How could that be relevant to the course that you're studying, or how could it demonstrate the skills that you possess? Good examples have been someone who worked on the film set of Gangs of London, who was applying to read sociology. She talked about some of the skills that she developed on a film set, like working under pressure, listening to instructions, having to learn a whole new language, the language of film. But she also talked about the media misrepresentation of gang life and gang violence. You might have done work experience at a GP surgery, but that's not necessarily relevant to the subject, but you will have developed skills like reliability, organisation, communication, empathy. You might just want to talk about things like voluntary work such as riding for the disabled or helping children in a primary school. All of these things will show that you are committed, that you're responsible, that you're a good communicator, that you've given something back to your community. But you might also be able to make it relevant to the subject that you're applying for too. What's most important is that if you haven't done work experience, you explore the alternatives. And if you've been lucky enough to get some work experience, make it count, make it relevant. Everything that I have talked about so far has been to help you get that balance of academic and personal right. If you can follow some of the tips that I've given you, you will be giving them the impression that you do have that interest in the subject, that you are suited to the course, and that you understand the relevance of that subject in the wider world. But we need to come to a close, and you don't want to use up too much of your word count at this point. But some things that you might want to think about is focusing on maybe which bits of the course that you're particularly excited about, making sure that it is relevant to all of the universities that you're applying to. Showing them that you are committed and excited about your subject and ready to study more independently. But also to make sure that you can demonstrate you understand what you could do with this course in future. It's okay not to be 100% focused, but at least show them that you are looking forwards as well. Many of you might be applying for slightly different courses at different universities. Admissions tutors are aware of that. You could be applying for liberal arts at one university and a combined honours course at another. As I said earlier, the best thing to do is to start by focusing on what are the modules that all of those courses have in common. If you're applying for an entirely new course, maybe something a little bit more vocational or something that you haven't studied at A-level, they won't expect you to be an expert in that subject, but you should be showing them that you are an emerging expert, that you can really understand how what you've studied at A-level is very relevant to this particular choice of course. Remember, you won't be doing all of this research and reflecting just to sound impressive or look good. All of the research that you do into a product design course, economics at university, or careers in law should all be about really stress testing your real interest in this subject. If you decide after a month or so that actually that's not the subject that you want to read anymore, that's a good informed decision. And it is always possible to put a spin on the experiences that you've had or the research that you've done or supercurricular activities to make them relevant to an alternative choice of course. I would always say be clear, then be clever. Don't try and sound more academic than you are. Don't try and impress them with long words. Be really clear about what is the point that you're trying to make as you write your personal statement. I would always say also don't ask too many people's opinions. This is where you might get confused, and it's worth remembering that personal statements on the whole are a matter of opinion. What one admissions tutor thinks looks great, another might not. Likewise, your tutor might think it looks great and a friend or parent might not agree with them. 4,000 characters might sound like a lot when you start, but you'll be amazed. And if you've written down all of the things that you want to include, then you've thought about how that could be relevant or how it could demonstrate your academic interests or some skills, that 4,000 characters will really add up. What I always suggest you do is don't obsess about the character count at this point. Write everything and then take out maybe the adjectives or over-descriptive phrases that you've used. It's always far easier to trim a personal statement than it is to pad it out. Now, September, when you might be asked to at least submit your first draft, sounds like a long way away, and it is. You've got plenty of time. But these next few months should be about gathering the evidence that I've shared. It should be about reflecting on those things and expanding on them and making those activities relevant. If you can follow some of these tips and some of this guidance, if you can keep that timeline in mind, it will help you put together a personal statement that has some structure, has all the content that you need, and actually, most importantly, something that is written by you and it sounds like you.